road.
Rain from the west will affect all parts tonight, turning heavy in places. Very windy along the coast with minimum temperatures of 3 to 6 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Well, as you might imagine, news of the FAI's dire financial situation continues to dominate the agenda. To that end, we'll have Professor Paul Rouse in studio after 9 o'clock, alongside Kieran Cunningham, and we will pick through the very stark prospects for the association and its staff. On Monday Night Rugby, wins for 3 of the Irish provinces. To what extent, we wonder, though, might Munster be under pressure now? We have Rory O'Connor and Matt Williams with us after 8 o'clock, and Pat Nevin joins us at 7:30. He'll talk Munster Derby, Manchester Derby, and big Duncan Ferguson at Everton. 53106 is the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Kieran Cunningham, hello.
Hello.
And Richie McCormack, hello.
Well, Joe.
All over the shop here.
Leicester, Munster.
A few errors early
going on.
A few errors early on can knock you off your stride. It takes a real experienced player to have a good game after they start off poorly.
Well, I think Leicester fans will be a bit annoyed that you imposed Duncan Ferguson on them. When they have the master Brendan Rodgers, why would you want to change?
Well, indeed.
8 wins in a row.
And a fancy new pay packet to match as well. He played the Arsenal situation beautifully.
Yeah.
So last Sunday he obviously gave Jeff Shreves the nod. I'm sure he didn't. I'm sure Jeff asked the question, and he said, "Well, at this moment in time, I'm very focused on Leicester." That's a hypothetical you're asking me about Arsenal.
Right.
And then by about Wednesday, Brendan Rodgers signed a new contract at Leicester, pay increase, all that kind of stuff. So
Didn't he pull similar? Without wanting to say that he's involved in any nefarious goods. There was interest when he was at Celtic at one stage. Somebody came in sniffing around him, and I think Celtic were like, "Oh, let's hang on to this guy. Let's give him another couple of years." I might be wrong, but it does sound familiar where Brendan Rodgers is concerned. That politically, he's pretty savvy, and he knows his worth at all times.
You can't dispute that he is a good manager. Like they play really, really good football, and they've quite a thin squad, and they're on a decent run. But I think it's beyond them. Like if you look at when they won the league, it was they got 81 points. If they keep up the present run, they'll get 90, and that's it's very questionable they can keep up this kind of form. So and I think Liverpool will get over 90 again. You would expect so. I said for a couple of weeks ago that I thought Leicester would finish above City, and a few people are laughing at me, but I think it looks... City just don't look right. Like Guardiola is just so grumpy all the time, and arguing with everyone,
he says running on to the with European top sides.
Yeah. And going on to, after every game now, he seems to be tearing into the officials, and he's doing a lot of moaning. I think that negative energy spreads to the players.
Well, interestingly, I think it's David Ornstein in The Athletic is now saying that Man City are interviewing for a high-performance director at the moment, and they have told several of the candidates they're interviewing that they should be prepared for the fact that this may well be Guardiola's last season.
Yeah.
Now, that's obviously leaked out, as of course it would be. Not terribly surprising news.
No.
But that seems to be their sense.
Well, I think he works very intensely over a short period of time, like at Barcelona. Then Bayern, he took a break before Bayern, didn't he?
Yeah, it was the
he took the sabbatical New York, but he didn't take a break after Bayern. That's 2 very intense jobs in a row. I think he could be needing a breather soon.
Regardless of all that, we'll get through the news round in a moment. It's worth just remarking on the last couple of days for Irish football as the various interpretations of the figures roll in. Professor Niamh Brennan today in the Irish Times made for very stark reading.
Yes, everybody should read that. Like it's in quite dry, legalistic language, but it's more than anything I've read, I think it lays bare how stark the situation is, and that there's no easy way out, and that it could be... it could end up as ground zero for the FAI, that they'll have to rebuild from the ground up, maybe even rename itself. Like I honestly think if the FAI was a business, would you give it any hope of surviving? The only reason you're giving it hope of surviving is as a national governing body in sport. It's the biggest participation sport in the country. It does a lot of social good, and you think because of that the government might well intervene. Yeah. But if it was a business, I wouldn't give it a prayer.
In Niamh Brennan's piece, just to give some of the highlights, and we'll go through this after 9 o'clock, but she talked about how the annual report reveals almost a complete absence of a system of internal control. The board did not keep proper books. The FAI had no procurement policies or procedures. There was no internal audit, no protocols for business cases, options appraisals or business justification. The FAI has no business plan that's currently being drafted. And it goes on to talk about various things, including board capture. FAI board allowed itself to be captured by its CEO, John Delaney. The FAI board appears to have approved Delaney's 2014 contract without sight of the contract. That one's a doozy.
Yeah.
And then the final section of her piece is, can the FAI be saved? And she says how Paul Cook says the FAI is close to reaching agreement with its bankers to refinance its debt. But she points out that being close to agreement means nothing when the banks really get down to business. And her last line effectively is that the organisation is at death's door. As I see it, only government intervention can save Irish soccer. And that's from Niamh Brennan. She's the professor, the Michael McCormack Professor of Management at UCD Centre for Corporate Governance, and I'm sure she knows exactly what she's talking about. So, as I see it, only government intervention can save Irish soccer. And when you think of the revenue over the last number of years, the full stadiums, all those kind of things, the popularity of the sport,
one of the things that jumped out.
here.
One of the things that jumped out at me from the press conference on Friday was, I think it was Paul Cook that said that, they admitted that it was discussed at board level whether they could sell the stake in the Viva. And if you think in the FAI's history, probably what they see as their proudest achievement was managing to have their own home, even if it was co-owned with IRFU. And it does look very complicated to try and sell it because of the tie-in with IRFU to sell that stake. But the fact that they even discussed it showed that they are in a place that was unthinkable just a few weeks ago. So I do think it's a good, a lot of the stuff Shane Ross has done, I think, is, he's been playing politics over this. Like he's changed his tune very quickly over what he's had to say with John Delaney. And it's not like nobody was raising red flags about what was going on in the FAI. It's been going on for years. But I think he is right to try and get pump money back in, because I think you want to save jobs in the FAI, first of all, as many as you can. And you want to save... get money into the grassroots where it's badly needed and where they've been starved of funds for months. Because if you are a coach or regional development officer in Ireland and you lose your job, what do you do? Like, if you've got a family, unless you live near the border and you could possibly work in the north, you're either looking, if you want to stay within football, you have to move out of the country or else go into something else. So it's a really stark situation for a lot of people.
Yeah, the worry for them must be terrible. And in the month of Christmas as well, just dreadful. I can only imagine the anger on their part in particular. And there wouldn't have been a massive wages, like largely the average salary were doing it for the love. The average salary in the FAI is €30,000. Yeah, they were doing it for the love of football. A lot of these people. So. Well, we'll come to that really in depth after 9. We'll talk to Pat Nevin at 7:30. We wanted to give the FAI stuff some time, so we're going to do Pat at 7:30, where he's got about 18-20 minutes to make sense of the weekend's football, and then between 9 and 10, Paul Rouse will join myself and Kieran, and we'll get through the FAI situation as it stands. In the meantime, Richie, more fun stuff, Joe. More fun stuff. More good news from the world of sport. Yeah. The World Anti-Doping Agency today handed Russia a 4-year ban from all major international sporting events. It means there'll be no official Russian team at next year's Olympics nor the 2022 World Cup, subject to an appeal. But athletes who can prove they weren't part of the doping scandal can compete under a neutral flag. Russia's qualification for Euro 2020, though, remains unaffected. Sports Minister of Russia, Pavel Kobalkov, says they did everything to try and resolve the doping scandal, while Russian Olympic Committee President Stanislav Pozniakov has called the sanctions inappropriate and excessive. Chair of the Compliance Review Committee, even Jonathan Taylor QC, explains how Russian footballers might go about competing at Qatar 2022.
If they qualify, then they can't. A team representing Russia cannot participate, but a team of neutral, if there's a mechanism put in place, then they can apply to participate on a neutral basis, not as representatives of Russia. And in a team context, how that works is going to have to be worked out on a case-by-case basis. But the answer is no Russian flag, not as representatives of Russia. And in terms of if they want to put in place a mechanism to allow this mechanism for athletes who can prove they're not tainted, they can do that. WADA has to either control or approve that mechanism, so they're going to have to work together. But what is very clear, it's one of the new things that the new standard brings in, is that once this is a final decision, everyone is bound by it, everyone has to implement it. So it will be for the IF, here FIFA to implement, but they'll have to do so in consultation with WADA, which will be making sure that there's a standardised approach and a compliant approach.
Like, your immediate instinct is to scoff at that and say, well, this is all just a bit ridiculous. But
basically removing the flag from the competitions.
I do understand there's probably a sense that there must be I use the word many advisedly, okay, but there must be many clean athletes in Russia still, to some extent or other. Several. Can we agree on several? To what extent, should they be punished, especially younger ones? To what extent should they be punished
but the fact that
for growing up in a rotten country?
Yeah, but the fact that it was state-sanctioned doping and more or less state-imposed doping, it's very hard to know how many would be clean. Like it could have been imposed at a very young age because so much has come out on it. There is a sense of déjà vu because there was a lot of this before Rio as well, and ended up there was quite a few Russians.
For Rio for the World Championships.
Of course, Michael Cunningham lost to a Russian famously. So, you still had. I still have a feeling there'll be quite a few Russian athletes in Rio.
I saw a tweet about it earlier on today. They weren't that bothered by it.
Yeah.
Like they were, as long as they got the chance to actually compete at whatever games it happened to be in question, they didn't mind that there was no flag there, that they were quote unquote a neutral athlete. It's just the fact of being there.
Well, as individuals, it makes no odds to them. But it is at least a decent punishment that there's no Russian flag to a point. I mean, I don't know what the appropriate punishment is.
It's just a ministerial thing more than anything else.
Well, I mean, it's embarrassing for the country that they are trying to explain to their people they don't even have a flag. To a point. Like, what do we want here? Russia, you're banned from everything forever. Like, what actually do you want here?
Look who's in charge of the country. How would that be spun to the people of Russia?
But like that can't be...
The people of Russia aren't going to...
That can't be the responsibility of the Olympic movement or the sporting movement.
But similarly, it's not going to spark an uprising from Russians, the common or garden Russian on the street saying, why don't we have a flag here? This is a disgrace, Vladimir Putin and the lads in charge of the Russian Olympic Committee.
The commoner Russian has more serious issues to deal with if they're unhappy with Vladimir Putin. I mean, we have to keep this in context as well.
But the Russian mentality has always been virtually everyone is doping, so why shouldn't we? They've always felt that. And,
you know what? They might have a point.
Yeah, and you look at medal tables, like Russia often isn't even near is quite a bit down it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are beating the doped up Russians. So how are they doing that? So that's legit. It is possible to do it on occasion, but for across the board, you'd wonder.
I suppose the devil is in the detail here, and it's about how stringent those tests are that allow Russian athletes to compete under the neutral flag. I mean, if there's a 99.9% success rate of, he's fine, she's fine, he's fine, she's fine, then obviously it's been a cod. I can't remember for Rio what percentage didn't make it through the WADA test.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
No,
there were plenty of Russians competing under the neutral flag in the games, that's for sure. Anyway, that's the latest from the Russia-WADA situation.
How about more good news, Joe?
Yeah, more drugs.
Go on.
Darryl Murphy has admitted to serving a drugs ban. The former Republic of Ireland striker told The Athletic that he tested positive for cocaine. Murphy admits to taking the drug on a night out while still a Nottingham Forest player and that he's not proud of what he did. The 36-year-old is now with Bolton, but while at Forest, he didn't play between October 6th and December 8th of last year. FA policy dictates that players failing tests not be named at the time, and he was banned, he says, for 6 weeks.
I'm surprised there aren't more of these. That's being honest now, because it's so common now, with people of that generation. I'm not just talking with Premier League players, but like here with GA players, etc. There are people a night out.
Every walk of life now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I suppose it's
nobody's squeaky clean.
It's dependent on the player coming forward. Darryl Murphy has admitted it. So unless a player comes forward, we never hear about it.
Yeah, there's often some people argue that cocaine you shouldn't get a drugs ban for recreational drug, but it is on the ban list as it is. It is used as a performance enhancer in horse racing because
it's an illegal drug. They have to take some action.
Yeah, of course. But it's
you almost forget it's illegal at this point.
Yeah, but it's used as a performance enhancer in horse racing because it's an appetite suppressant. So jockeys use it because they're obviously trying to make weight, and I would think that's probably an issue in boxing, other sports that you have to make weight as well. So.
Yeah. Oh, I have no doubt he's not the only one, I'm sure. There's a real culture there. There might be a set within the game who look at alcohol and beer and the weight that you put on with beer as the more damning thing to put into your system. Is the next thing good news?
No. Minister for Sport Shane Ross has called on those responsible for the financial crisis at the FAI to apologise. Representatives of the FAI are due to appear before the Joint Oireachtas Committee for Transport, Tourism and Sport on Wednesday. Minister Ross says he wants a clean sweep of football administrators in this country. The government will continue to fund grassroots and women's football. Minister Ross told Virgin Media News this evening he doesn't foresee direct government intervention being an issue for UEFA or FIFA.
I think UEFA would recognise the fact that we are worried about government funding. We've got a duty to the taxpayer. We're not going to interfere with their internal affairs, with their operations, their day-to-day operations or anything like that. No. But we must be absolutely certain that we don't give money to an organisation which is in tatters. And the FAI is, and I think everybody would agree, it's a basket case, it's a financial basket case. The extent of the debt we don't even know. And we're not going to put government funds or taxpayers' money into that. And I'm not a bit concerned about having a conflict with FIFA or the UEFA over that, because I think they'd share our concern, having seen the figures and how the FAI runs its internal affairs, and it's been really, really badly, will be a matter. I suppose it will continue to be a matter, not for us, but for others. But how taxpayers' money is spent is a matter for us, and how it's managed is a matter for us, and how the governance of an NGB like this works is a matter for us, and we're not going to give taxpayers' money to them unless it works properly.
It seems like they will find an intermediary in a way of doing that, and it shouldn't take too long. There's a text in from Senator Aidan O'Riordan who says, "We've arranged an Oireachtas briefing with FAI staff tomorrow at 10 a.m. in Leinster House."
Okay.
I suspect you will be greeted by an angry bunch, Senator, and rightly so. To what extent are the government culpable is a question people are trying to grapple with. Like Sport Ireland will argue that they give X million per year, and in terms of their audit, they can only make sure that their X million was spent appropriately.
Yeah.
And that is the end of their powers. And then you've John Delaney and you've the FAI not revealing very much. And there is general murmur of discontent, to say the least, from journalists. And I think nobody could have predicted it would be this horrific, but certainly you wonder what more they could have done.
Yeah, like can Sport Ireland intervene? Like the accounts that were put forward have now been shown to be kind of misleading.
Yes, to say the least.
To say the least. So, but Sport Ireland, no, they were signed off. So Sport Ireland would presumably have taken them on trust because it was signed off. So you'd wonder, could they have done more? Like a lot of people say they should have done more, but like if they took, John Delaney basically seems to have done what he wanted, and everybody just went with it. That does seem to be the case. Like within the FAI.
Board capture is the phrase Niamh Brennan uses in her piece, and it does what it says in the
That's why I think there are a lot of people now kind of trying to wipe their hands of it all and say it was just down to John Delaney, but like they allowed this situation to happen where he was effectively running the show and calling the shots and deciding on his own bonuses, etc. And the media is culpable too. Like the media very much helped us rise and cemented his position at the top. Like if you go into the archives, there's a lot of stuff in there, and it wasn't just the RTE panel, or it wasn't just that hagiography, the John the Baptist film thing. There's plenty of other stuff out there, and maybe a lot of us weren't questioning enough at the time when he was grabbing power. And
he seems though then, because we had Philip Quinn in here yesterday on the paper review, and Philip was saying he was a fan of Delaney when he first came on the scene. There was a sense this guy was young and he was going to clean things up, and it was an association that needed much improvement.
He did paint himself very much as the reformer, the new broom, and people bought into that. Yeah, but
some people bought into it.
Yeah, some.
Like I remember, I've seen a lot over the last week of different fans groups from League of Ireland clubs posting stuff from 10 years ago or more, giving out about Delaney, giving out about the state of the FAI, and saying they weren't doing enough. There were people out there.
Oh, definitely 10 years ago. If you go back a bit further...
You're talking about when he first came on the scene.
Yeah, which is early noughties, around Saipan, etc. And then 2003, 2004...
I'm kind of still sort of in school Saipan territory, but I do remember, compared to the absolute mess that was going on, Delaney emerged out of that not looking terrible.
Yeah.
Compared to the mess.
Yeah, I think because he wasn't the guy in charge, and he wasn't in Saipan.
Yes.
He was back in Dublin. He was kind of away for, like Brendan Menton was being interviewed and it was hot weather and he's wearing a t-shirt and shorts. He doesn't look, particularly professional because of the circumstances. So it's very easy for John Delaney to kind of put forward a different kind of image.
Well, I can see how certain journalists at the time said, well, let's give this guy a chance. Yeah. Now, if you're still saying 8, 9, 10 years later, geez, things are going very well, then you have a question to answer as journalists. But I think initially I can understand how people might have thought, well, let's see where this goes.
Yeah.
It's a decision which would have, or an interpretation which has aged horribly, obviously.
Yeah. But, it's actually because, like you've met John Delaney, I presume, have you, over the years? Never met him, okay.
But John, most recently, I think.
Yeah, but John Delaney is a very fluent talker. He's very articulate.
Is he?
Yeah, well, when he wants to, like he can be. Yeah.
Genuinely, I'm not kicking him out when he's down.
Yeah.
He has never struck me as an impressive speaker.
No, I'm saying more in comparison to a lot of people that have been around the FAI. I think he was very convinced, which is a low bar, a very low bar. Right. But I think because of that, he came across as very plausible to a lot of people because he talked the talk of revolution and evolution and openness and transparency and a new broom, and we're getting away from the past, and Roy Keane won't be moaning about leg room and flights anymore and all that kind of stuff, because people were buying into all this Roy Keane moaning and all about a load of stuff. Then he sorts it all out, and he sorts out Genesis and all this thing.
So, when he's doing his Ray Darcy interview, and he's talking about, move on, please, I said to Sepp, and Ray's like, I heard 5 million. Well, yeah, I couldn't comment, but, fair play to you. You've got your source. You think that was impressive as a speaker?
No. Come on, you can.
You thought that was good, did you?
No, I didn't.
You thought that's my guy?
No, that's hubris. A fragrance from Waterford.
It sure is. Right, let's move on. Is the next thing good news?
We forgot he once sang on the Kilkenny bus after they won All Ireland. How did Brian Cody let him on the bus? I can't get over that.
Did he really?
Yeah, I don't know how he got on the bus, but after when they're way back from winning an All Ireland.
The man obviously had a charm and a charisma. I just wasn't exposed to it. But I mean, you don't get in the Kilkenny bus to sing for no reason.
Yeah.
So what was this bit of magic, this bit of
je ne sais quoi? You don't get the front of Life magazine for no reason.
It's je ne sais quoi, Kieran, that you seem to have been enamoured with.
Marty's let us down.
No. Marty's let us down. He could have been photoshopped into that, we don't know.
So Johnny Sexton is the news today, isn't it?
Yeah, he's out of Leinster's Heineken Champions Cup meeting with Northampton at the Aviva. The out-half requires a scan on a knee injury sustained in the 43-16 win over the Saints of Franklin's Gardens. Meanwhile, centre Joe Tamani is out for between 6 and 8 weeks. That's after the recurrence of a hamstring problem. James Ryan is following the return to play protocols following a head injury. He's a doubt for this Saturday's game. But in better news for the province, Sean Cronin has returned to full training following a neck injury. Now, Arsenal 9 games without a win in all competitions ahead of tonight's Premier League meeting with West Ham at the London Stadium. For the Hammers, Mikel Antonio starts up front, but there's no David Luiz in the Arsenal defence tonight. Callum Chambers and Socrates Papastotopoulos are their centre-half partnership. Gabriel Martinelli starts in behind Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and there's a start as well for record signing Nicolas Pepe. Kickoff there is at 8 o'clock. Back to the awful news. A 41-year-old Manchester City fan arrested for alleged racist abuse of Manchester United players has been released on bail. The incident occurred during Saturday's Manchester derby win for United at the Etihad. A video circulated of a City fan making monkey gestures and sounds towards United players. Greater Manchester Police say the man in question has been released pending further investigations. Investigations also underway after a 14-year-old fan was ejected from Tottenham Stadium on Saturday for racially abusing Heung-min's son. Stewards spotted the Burnley fan appearing to aim racist slurs at the South Korean and removed him shortly afterwards. Both teams looking into that matter, and Wolves have confirmed that 2 arrests were made during yesterday's Premier League game away to Brighton for homophobic abuse. The club say they strongly condemn such behaviour. An investigation into alleged homophobic chants during Everton's match with Chelsea on Saturday is ongoing.
Is this behaviour increasing, or is it being clamped down on more?
Yes and yes.
Yeah, I would agree with both. Like Gary Neville was bang on what he said, that it's a reflection of the political climate. Like when you have politicians who are stoking up a lot of nasty sentiment with some of the rhetoric that they use, like Boris Johnson in the election, like a lot of the Tories, like the Brexit Party. It's seeping through into the wider discourse now. Like I think the last couple of times I've been in England, I felt it's definitely become an uglier place than when I lived there. I think there's definitely not this, like even people I would know that wouldn't be Tories or, they wouldn't be racist, but they bought into this thing. They're just weary of it all. They say, just get Brexit done. We'll just get it done and move on now. And you go, but it's madness. But because there's a fatigue of this, and it's like all Boris Johnson does is repeat the same messages, which is, it really is a kind of like indoctrination now. If you keep repeating the same thing, people, it soaks into them and they end up,
It's terrible. And I watched the leaders' debate on Saturday as well. I stop anyone in the street and ask them in the UK, what's Jeremy Corbyn's stance? What's Labour and Jeremy Corbyn's stance on Brexit? And he has made such a mess of trying to outline that.
I quoted
Whereas
earlier on.
Johnson has looked at this.
Just gone, get Brexit done, get Brexit done, get Brexit done. I said earlier on, I equated it to, I posted a picture on Twitter, Ronnie Rosenthal threw on goal against Aston Villa in like 92, 93, because that's the position the Labour Party find themselves in this election. Like, it should be a straight, no problem goal, and they're going to hit
Well,
the
the
bar.
UK are going to have the three worst prime ministers in succession in their history: David Cameron, Theresa May and Boris Johnson. Now, I can't, in succession, I don't think they've ever had three as bad, and the Labour Party haven't been able to take them out because of putting their faith in somebody who's unelectable. Is madness.
Get a Miliband back. Any Miliband.
Give us a Miliband.
Whichever one of them.
Anyway,
Yeah, it's very grim.
this is depressing news around.
Yeah,
Thanks.
well, even
Thanks for
the-
calling me in.
No worries. Even the teenager with the racist gesture to Son.
Yeah.
Not that this is the point either, but Son is also one of the clearly nicest men on the planet.
Yeah.
Not that that's should be an issue, but teenager doing that, and
I know.
it's just what
But
is going
I
on?
watched the United City game, and when Fred was getting, you could see the stuff on the ground. There was a plastic bottle and there was some cigarette lighters. He was getting stuff thrown at him, and then you get a close up of the crowd. And I actually looked deliberately to see, was there anybody making gestures, because it was so abusive in that corner. I thought there probably would be, and then of course there was.
And you think Manchester, like this wonderful liberal city, when you're there and multinational.
And then you've
The entire makeup of the Premier League.
And
It's
Raheem
literally
Sterling,
built on foreign players.
Raheem Sterling has had more dealt with more racist abuse than any other player, and he's the city hero. Like, it's just mad.
Sometimes you are going down a rabbit hole to try and rationalise the stupidity.
Yeah, that's it.
Like Roy Keane on Sky afterwards, as he often can, just went to the nub of the point and said, look, there's just idiots. And sometimes Roy is prone to oversimplification on these matters at times, but there was something in that too.
Stupid is as stupid does. Yeah.
And even that the alleged perpetrator was wearing a gilet and his arms were in a different colour to the gilet highlighted more what he was trying to do in a very subtle way. I mean, he just made the gesture in the most subtle way imaginable.
He was trying to put his hands in his pockets.
That's what he says, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, he missed them.
Off you go, Canton. Off you go, Cantona. It's an early bat for you.
Several times.
Yeah. He's the new Matthew Simmons. Off you go, Cantona. It's an early bat for you.
There's a name.
Mr. Cantona, I think he's
Mr. Cantona.
So I should tell you, we are heading for the latest Off the Ball Roadshow in association with Cunningham Rugby Club. We are going to Galway. This is Wednesday. We'll be at the Galmont Hotel with Brian O'Driscoll, Will Greenwood. We will have the Connacht contingent there. Andy Friend and Tiernan O'Halloran will be there. And because we're in Galway, Cyril Farrell is also being dragged along. So it should be a really good night. Very final few tickets left if you want to come along, people of Galway. offtheball.com/events is where you can get them. All with thanks to Cunningham Rugby Club. Visit drinkaware.ie, and remember, it's an over-18s event only. So on the football show, Kieran will be back with us. We'll also be joined by Paul Rouse, and we'll get stuck into the various aspects of the FAI story. Then, up next, Pat Nevin.
Off the Ball on Newstalk.
Sarah stretches, feeling refreshed. She never normally wakes naturally